All right, rugby fans, let's jump into a deep dive into Jonny Wilkinson's world. A full decade after he retired.
A decade? Really?
Yeah, 10 years. You know Wilkinson, of course, a legend.
An icon.
But instead of reliving all those amazing World Cup moments, you know we're going to explore what he's been up to since then, 10 years into retirement. And get this, he didn't even realize it had been that long.
Really?
Yeah. It makes you think, what does that say about how he views his achievements?
That's a good point. You'd think for someone who's so tied to rugby history, those milestones would be more important.
Exactly. He's not dwelling on the past, but he can still access those memories if he wants to.
That's interesting. To me, it seems like he's made a choice to focus on moving forward.
Yeah. And what he's doing now is amazing. So diverse. He's got this podcast, I Am, and he's talking to all kinds of people. Psychologists, resilience experts, mindfulness, personal growth, stuff you wouldn't normally associate with a rugby legend.
It's definitely a different kind of line out, that's for sure.
Right. And it makes you wonder, what other interests was he hiding back when he was playing?
Yeah. It's like we're getting to see a whole new side of him now, like peeling back the layers.
Exactly, like we're discovering the real Jonny. And here's something really interesting. He doesn't really watch much rugby anymore.
Now, that is surprising. I would have thought he'd be glued to every match.
Right. He says watching it brings up comparisons, which he wants to avoid.
I see.
It seems like he's genuinely looking for new things and doesn't want to relive the past. Do you think most athletes are like this after they retire?
That's a tough one. I think it depends. Some athletes stay really involved, coaching or doing commentary.
Right.
But others want a clean break, like Jonny. It might be about the pressure of their legacy, or maybe they just want to try new things.
That makes sense. It's like he climbed one huge mountain and now he's looking for new ones to conquer.
And speaking of reaching out, what about how he interacts with fans?
Ah, yes. The fans who still remember him for that World Cup win. Exactly. And even though he acknowledges his past, he steers conversations towards more meaningful topics.
Interesting.
Yeah. He's not just signing autographs and reliving old games. He's really connecting with people, talking about their lives and dreams.
That shows a real desire to connect with people authentically, to go beyond just being famous.
Yeah. Imagine being constantly reminded of one specific moment in your life.
Yeah.
No wonder he wants something more.
I agree.
It makes you wonder if that's why some athletes need that clean break we were talking about.
Yeah.
But there's this quote from Jonny that I think really explains what drives him. He says, "From the very beginning, I was driven by huge fear."
Wow. That's powerful, especially when you think about how fearless he was on the field.
Right. And he's not talking about being afraid of getting hurt. It's a much deeper kind of fear. It's like it's always pushed him to face challenges head on, both in rugby and in life.
That's amazing.
It seems like he's constantly trying to prove something, but not to anyone else, just to himself.
It's almost a contradiction, isn't it? Fear leading to such incredible success.
I know. It makes you think maybe it's not about getting rid of fear, but using it as fuel to push yourself further.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. And even though he doesn't follow the game closely now, he still has thoughts about how rugby's doing, especially the English team. And you'll love this. He's actually excited about the new players coming up.
Oh, now I have to know. What's caught his eye? Is it the forwards or the backs?
He's really impressed by the fly half talent. He mentioned Finn Smith, Marcus Smith, George Ford, even Owen Farrell and Finn Russell.
Wow.
He thinks it's an amazing time to be coaching England because there are so many options at number 10. What do you think of this new generation of fly halves?
Well, there's definitely a lot of potential there. Each player brings something unique to the table.
Oh.
You've got the tactical skills of Farrell, the creativity of Marcus Smith, and the reliability of George Ford. And we can't forget about the younger guys like Finn Smith and Orlando Bailey.
Right. They're just getting started.
Exactly. It's a really interesting mix of experience and young talent.
Yeah. Wilkinson even said he's a bit jealous of the England coach because there are so many good options.
Yeah. That's a good problem to have.
Definitely. So, switching gears a bit, what do you think about Owen Farrell's move to France?
Oh, yeah. That was a big decision to leave Saracens and the Premiership.
For sure.
I think it shows how ambitious he is, wanting to test himself in a completely new environment.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the rugby itself. It's about experiencing a different culture, a different way of playing.
And that's exactly what Wilkinson was saying. He thinks playing in France will give Farrell a whole new perspective and make him an even better player.
Right.
He even said that immersing yourself in a different culture can change how you approach rugby as a whole.
I totally agree. When you step outside your comfort zone, you're exposed to new coaching styles, different ways of thinking about the game.
Yeah.
It can really help you grow, both as a player and as a person. And remember, Jonny himself spent time in France after he retired, so he knows what he's talking about.
That's true. It's like he's saying, don't just play the game, try to really understand it from different angles.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder if more players should try playing in different leagues, broaden their horizons a bit.
I think so. So how do you think playing in the top 14 will specifically affect Farrell?
That's a good question.
Well, French rugby is known for being more unpredictable,
Yeah.
It's less structured than the Premiership, so Farrell will have to think on his feet more and maybe develop a more instinctive style of play.
Interesting.
And who knows, he might even learn some new tricks that he can bring back to England.
Yeah, it's like a cultural exchange program, but for rugby players.
Uh-huh, like that.
So let's talk about something else that's really caught Wilkinson's attention lately. Women's rugby.
I'm so glad he's interested in the women's game. It's come such a long way.
It really has.
The skill level is incredible, and it's finally getting the recognition it deserves.
Absolutely. He mentioned that he has a friend who works with the Red Roses, and through talking to her, he's become fascinated by how athletic and tactical the women's game is.
That's awesome.
He even hinted that he might want to get involved somehow.
Yeah.
What do you think he could bring to women's rugby?
Oh, so many things. His expertise in kicking and game management would be invaluable.
Yeah.
Imagine him mentoring young fly halves, helping them develop their tactical skills.
Right. And think about the inspiration he would bring.
Oh, absolutely.
Having a legend like Jonny Wilkinson supporting women's rugby would be huge.
It would show the world how important the women's game is.
Exactly. It could bring in more fans, more sponsors, more resources.
For sure. It'd be amazing.
It's about time women's rugby gave the same level of support as the men's game.
Definitely.
It's great that Wilkinson sees that and might use his influence to help the sport grow. But it's interesting how we started this deep dive talking about Jonny's personal journey. And now we're talking about the future of women's rugby.
Yeah, you're right. It all comes back to his own evolution and his search for new things that excite him.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even after achieving so much, there's always room for growth and new adventures.
And that those new paths can be just as fulfilling, if not more so.
I agree. It's about finding what truly matters to you and going after it no matter what other people expect.
Yeah, it's about breaking free and creating your own path, just like Jonny's doing.
And for him, it seems like that path is all about connecting with people, sharing his experiences, and helping others reach their full potential.
It's like he's shifted from focusing on his own success to making a positive impact on the world.
And that's a powerful message for everyone, whether you're a rugby fan, an athlete, or just trying to figure out your own life.
I agree.
It's not always about reaching the top. It's about finding meaning and purpose in what you do.
Well said.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. What are you passionate about? What are you holding back on?
That's a great question.
What unexplored paths are calling your name? What would it take for you to step outside your comfort zone and pursue those passions with the same dedication that Jonny Wilkinson has?
It's definitely something to think about.
Because, just like him, we all have the potential to grow and change.
Absolutely. And you never know, those unexplored paths might lead you to discover a whole new side of yourself.
It's pretty amazing to see how he's embraced this new chapter in his life.
Yeah, it really is.
From winning the World Cup to now exploring mindfulness and maybe even coaching women's rugby. It's quite a journey.
He's definitely not limiting himself.
Not at all. But what really stands out to me is how he seems to focus on connection and growth in everything he does.
Yeah, it's like he's moved beyond just being a rugby player.
Exactly. He's exploring all these different sides of himself, And I think that's something we can all learn from.
Absolutely. It's about being authentic to yourself.
Right. Like, we're all more than just what we do for a living.
Exactly. There's so much more to each of us.
There's a whole world waiting to be discovered. And for Wilkinson, it seems like connecting with others is a big part of that.
Yeah, he seems to be really looking for those genuine connections that make life richer.
It's like he wants to go beyond the surface level and have real conversations with people.
I think so. And remember that quote about him being driven by fear? It makes you wonder if those fears are part of what led him to focus on connecting with others more authentically.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thought.
Maybe facing those fears makes you more empathetic and vulnerable, which helps you connect with people on a deeper level.
I like that. It's like fear becomes a bridge instead of a wall.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Jonny Wilkinson's world beyond rugby,
It feels like we've learned a lot.
We have. It's been a fascinating journey.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that even icons can change and grow.
And find new passions.
Right. It's a reminder that life is about embracing the journey, not just holding on to the past.
Well said. It's about constantly evolving and discovering new things.
And for all the rugby fans out there, it shows that our heroes are more than just athletes, you know.
They're real people with their own stories and passions.
And those stories can be just as inspiring as their achievements on the field.
Absolutely. So if you're interested in hearing more about Jonny Wilkinson's thoughts on things like resilience and personal growth, definitely check out his podcast, I Am.
Yeah, it's full of really insightful conversations.
It might even inspire you to start your own journey of self-discovery.
And on that note, we'll leave you with one last thought to ponder. What unexplored paths are out there for you? What steps can you take today to start creating a life that truly reflects who you are?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time,